Well, good morning. It's a beautiful, crisp Monday morning here at Kirby Misperton in North Yorkshire, if a little cool. The temperature is about 2 degrees below freezing, but the good news is, of course, that it's crispy underground as opposed to the mud that we're having to endure once the thaw sets in. Anyway, what a fantastic weekend it's been, but before I talk about the weekend, let me revert to the mystery of last Thursday night and the question as to whether Barclays Bank, trading here as Third Energy, did actually frack, taking the opportunity of the heads up that they had inadvertently been given by the announcement that the BEIS, the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, had discovered a loophole. And that loophole actually potentially gave Barclays Bank here the opportunity to frack this well without having to seek permission from the Secretary of State, Greg Clark. So the supposition was added weight to with the knowledge that the pumps here had been running for some hours in the early hours of Friday morning. Well, the reality is that, sorry, it was Thursday morning, wasn't it? But the reality is that the Environment Agency, the Health and Safety Executive, the BEIS, North Yorkshire Council, Barclays Bank, trading as Third Energy, were all bombarded with emails and phone calls asking the question, had Barclays Bank taken the opportunity to frack? Well, the response that I'm going to give most credence to is the one from the Environment Agency, who in a written response stated that they had had 2 of their own employees here on site on Wednesday, and the feedback from those employees was that Third Energy were not getting ready to start the frack here. So the Environment Agency did actually also state that they had contacted the company, and the response was that they had indeed fired up the pumps, but they were circulating the water in the tanks to prevent the water from freezing. Now, consider that the people that are camping on the roadside here are probably a little over 500 yards or so from the well site. They were woken up by the vibration and by the noise of the pumps, and that was just to circulate water. So you can get some idea of the order of magnitude that is a vibration that's going to be occurring once they do start firing up the pumps to actually frack. So here we are. It is now almost exactly 4 weeks since Barclays Bank, trading as Third Energy, submitted their application to Greg Clark for him to sign off this frack. Now, the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy state that they haven't even looked at the application because they have been focused on trying to address this loophole, which apparently, although I haven't seen confirmation yet, but apparently, according to the press release last week, should have been dealt with last week. So here we are now. It's Monday the 4th of December. And what is Greg Clark going to do? Well, first of all, having stated that they haven't even looked at it, I doubt very much they can justify signing it off after just a couple of days. They're going to need to put a lot more effort into studying all the documentation that's been submitted. So I have to say, at this point, it looks extremely unlikely that Barclays Bank will get the go-ahead to frack here at Kirby Misperton before the end of the year. And that would mean that we get through another year, 2017, frack-free in the UK. But of course, we are certainly not out of the woods. And, the other factor is that the PR nightmare that would ensue if Greg Clark gave permission to start this before Christmas, because, what a Christmas present the government gives to its staunch Tory supporters up here in North Yorkshire. I mean, it would be a big frack you to the community here, and if they decided to do it just before Christmas. So we're ready, obviously, to deal with whatever it is that occurs, but somehow I sense that if Greg Clark's as smart as he's cracked up to be, then he will now defer it until the new year. But meanwhile, there are a lot of challenges going in. There's another injunction, or attempt to get an injunction that is about to be submitted. So there's a lot of things going on in the background to try to get Greg Clark and Theresa May to do the right thing. As I've alluded to in the past, I sense that Theresa May would like to see the back of this industry as much as we would. But of course, she can't actually come out and say so. It's not her project. It's not her agenda. It's an agenda that she inherited from George Osborne and David Cameron. And, you know, I can only think that they must have agreed to this when they were, you know, snorting at some party with oil industry lobbyists, because anyone in their right mind would never, ever concede that this could be beneficial to this country in any way, shape or form. So, Theresa, we know, or we sense, that you are looking for a way out here. You've got enough problems without having this, especially when it's effectively right now being targeted in two of your staunch Tory constituencies. Of course, if they were Labour constituencies, then all hell would be breaking loose, and it would be very much on the forefront of Jeremy Corbyn's questions every Wednesday at noon. Anyway, watch this space, and certainly watch what's happening with Greg Clark. And if you feel so motivated, then there is still time to let him know what you think about this agenda kicking off in the UK. But the weekend was fantastic. Last week we started the campaign to tagger Barclays, and that was started by people here in North Yorkshire, targeting 8 banks in North and West Yorkshire, and getting the word out that this was going to be Tagger Barclays month. It's only because there's only 1 month left in the year. But next year, 2018, will be Tagger Barclays year. And I have to acknowledge the contribution from community groups as far apart as Exeter, in Devon, Chelmsford, in Essex, Leicester, where there was actually a flash mob that went inside the bank to sing somewhat modified carols, which featured very much the Barclays Bank relationship with this insidious abomination here. Huddersfield, Sheffield, Harrogate, and I'm sure there are many more that I haven't remembered this morning. And at Pickering, of course, there was a march. This is the nearest town to this well site here, about 4 miles away. And there was a wonderful march. The weather held for us. About 220 odd people, I think, were counted there. And the march went up the high street, and coincidentally, just as the march got to the high street, the Barclays Bank, which sits right next door to the Conservative Club in Pickering High Street, was indeed tagged. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to wait for the weekend necessarily. And of course, please be sure to use either snow spray or chalk spray, because this just washes straight off, and it's extremely unlikely that anybody could be charged with criminal damage on that basis. If you use paint or anything that's a little bit more difficult to remove, then obviously there is that risk. So please stay with chalk spray or the snow spray. And in Liverpool, there were unfortunately just 2 arrests because they had the creativity to use chalk spray in the colours, the light blue colours of the Barclays logo. And apparently the police didn't realise it was chalk spray and did actually arrest them. But it ain't going to go anywhere because it was indeed just chalk spray. So, you know, use as much creativity as you feel appropriate. But let's ramp up this campaign to let Barclays customers know precisely what this company is intending to unleash beneath this community here in North Yorkshire, which would potentially trigger this industry running rampant right across the north of England. So it is a beautiful day. Gosh, this is, and I think it's looking at the clouds, it might actually stay that way for a few hours. It could change rather quickly, but it looks like it's going to stay that way for a few hours. So if you are in the area, please do pop down to the gates here and meet with the crew at the gates. We now have a tea and coffee caravan that manifested over the weekend, so refreshment facilities are back up and running. Or of course visit the main camp, just a mile and a half the other side of the village, where all sorts of things are being planned for next year. And there's always a welcome there. And please, if you haven't visited a protection camp before, then please do make that effort, because what you'll find is that the people here are not the stereotypes presented by the media. These are people who in many cases, myself included, have never actually been considered themselves as activists in the past, but they have looked at this and realized that actually, they have to do something, because this is simply something that we cannot allow to occur if we're to provide the resources necessary for future generations, those resources being uncontaminated water, uncontaminated soil and uncontaminated air. So pretty basic, really. Well, I made the observation last week that somebody had left a comment about, could I shorten these videos? Could I get them to sort of like less than 5 minutes, so that the YouTube generation might actually watch? And whilst I do recognize that people are somewhat time poor these days, because of the pressures of 21st century life, but sorry, but it's going to be 15-20 minutes, if I'm going to get everything in. And if you don't like it, well, I guess just switch off or watch later. But thank you very much for the vote of confidence in the 15-20 minutes, and we will try and keep them running. So please watch this space. And if you're over the other side of the Pennines, obviously Quadrilla are still trying to drill the well that they intend to frack at Prestonue Road, but they appear to be having very significant geological problems. Either that, or the driller has never actually sat behind the controls in the doghouse before, and his only experience of drilling was with a Black & Decker, because it seems to be a complete disaster. Clearly the geology is not doing what they predicted that it would do, and of course this is an extremely good sign, because it shows that we are effectively dealing with a cowboy industry that shouldn't certainly be allowed to establish a footprint here in the UK. So either visit over at Prestonue Road or here at Kirby Misperton. And then the south of England, a group of people did actually try to occupy, well, they did occupy, I think for about 60 hours or so, the well site at Horse Hill, just outside Hawley in Surrey. And the south of England is really difficult to get any traction, because people are just too busy chasing the buck. And the handful of people there that are trying to raise awareness of this are really up against the 8 ball. Fortunately, up here in the north of England, there's a little bit still more of a sense of community. And also people do seem to be able to balance their time a little more and find the time that is necessary to oppose this industry. And of course this is what the British government and the industry relies upon, that people are so busy that even if they have the inclination, they don't actually have the time to do anything about it. And the fundamental philosophy of this government is that they don't care why you don't participate, as long as you don't. So they rely on people's apathy, their willful ignorance, or their absolute abdication from actually participating in any form of opposition. And generally they regard opposition as little more than an irritation, and it's something that is necessary to maintain the charade of democracy. Well, what's occurring here with this industry is, of course, pulling the rug from right under that, and demonstrating that basically the democracy does not exist. It only exists providing the community make the right decisions, right, that is, in the eyes of the government and the corporations. So I was having a conversation with somebody just at the weekend, who very senior retired businessman, and he made the observation. He said, I put my hands up. I'd never questioned the establishment. I never had any cause to consider that they weren't looking after our best interests, but now I see different. And so it's never too late, while you're still breathing in, hopefully enough oxygen to survive, But while you're still breathing, there's still an opportunity not only to see what's really going on, but then to come and contribute to bringing about the changes that we all know we need to see. So thanks for joining me on this crisp first Monday in December. And whilst I can hear the pumps just turning over right now, that's probably on the basis that it is a couple of degrees below and they're circulating the water. That they can circulate the water as much as they like. It's costing Barclays Bank, not that they care, but it's costing Barclays Bank something in excess of £100,000 a day to keep this kit on site and keep the frack crew somewhere in the area. And of course, we are going to be very interested to find out who's actually paying for that. Is it Barclays Bank, or have the government told them that they'll underwrite whatever delays occur as a result of them not signing off? And I'm sure that will come a bit clearer as we go through the month. Anyway, thanks again, and I will catch you tomorrow at 8:30. Thanks for joining me. And please share. Let's please get this word out, and please go tag a Barclays.